In this video, I'll show you how to 3D print your very own Moon Knight Crescent darts for your Moon Knight cosplay. Let's get printing. Hi, Tracy here from Astrocyte Cosplay. Moon Knight is finally making its way to the MCU with its release on Disney Plus later this month, and we could not be any more excited in this household. My husband's favourite comics as a kid were Deadpool and Moon Knight, so we are so hyped for this series. I would love to hear, who was your favourite character as a kid? Leave a comment below. We are currently working on the Marvel Now version of the Moon Knight cosplay, and these crescent darts were modelled from that. However, the process and the tips that are in this video are still relevant if you want to do the Disney Plus version. Just go and get your preferred model and follow along with this tutorial.
The 3D model was part of the Moon Knight weapon set by the Armory as part of his Patreon back in September. Now, I will put a link in the description below to his Patreon as it's extremely good value. I think the lowest tier is like $5 and you get a lot of 3D models for that. I have also printed the Ankh and the grappling hook as part of the Marvel Moon Knight cosplay that I'm doing for my husband. So if this is something that you want to see more videos on, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you'll know when they're posted. So jumping over to Cura, we're going to have a look at some of the basic settings that I used to print this Moon Knight Crescent dart. Now, you'll see when you drop this into Cura, it is massive. Now, I did talk to Trace over at the Armory. He is a super nice guy and really, really helpful. So he'd already printed one of these and said that he suggested it was 60% that he printed it at, and it was a great size. So that is what I went with. So putting in 60, making sure you have your uniform scaling on, and we'll drop that down. Now we have a much better size. Having a look at the orientation, I did rotate it on its end. So if we use the rotation tool and flip it over, I did do it like this. And then having a look at some of the basic settings that I use, I won't bore you with all of them, but I did do a layer height of 0.16 millimeters as I wanted to make sure that the detail in the front of this piece came out very, very well. And then mainly the rest is fairly standard except for I had to generate supports. I did everywhere with an overhang of 60 and a support density of 10%, and did print with a raft as there's not a lot of model here to adhere to the build plate. So we need every bit of stick that we can. So let's slice that up and have a look at where the supports are going to go. Now that that's sliced, you'll see that it was going to take 9 hours and 57 minutes and use 40 grams of filament. So let's have a quick preview of that and see where the supports are going to go. Now you'll see here, it is mainly just supporting around the bottom with the raft. Now I was a little bit worried about the stability and if it was going to get a bit of a wobble or actually survive. So I ended up adding some custom supports. So let's do that now. So just using this custom supports tool here, using a cube and dropping to the build plate. So just clicking where you wanted. Now I did about here and here on each side. Now you can move these around so that they're centered if you need to. So same as any of the other pieces, you can just move them around, sort of making sure that they were in the middle and supporting the model. With the crescent darts hot off the printer, loving the detail, just a little bit rough around the edges just where the supports were and up the top, but we may just need to use some wood filler to fill in later on. Now just starting with a 240 grit sandpaper, just trying to knock down some of those initial layer lines. Just be a little bit careful on the detail part, you don't want to go too heavy there. Next, we're going to hit it with some primer filler. Now, this really helps fill in some of those layer lines, but also lets you see exactly where you need to continue sanding, as the layer lines will definitely show through this step. So you can see here that I clearly have some lines that I've got to continue sanding and filling. So we're sanding on, folding some of the sandpaper to get into some of the detailed sections. And another way is some of these file sets that I found that can help get in. It is a little bit difficult with the detail to get into all of it, but just do your best. Now you'll see some of the sanding dust gets in there, so I give it a good wash off just to try and get that out before I do some of the next steps. So I'm going to use some wood filler here just to try and fill in those really large imperfections. So it's just a matter of trying to squish that into the layer lines, letting it dry, and then we're going to go and sand it off. So going up in the sandpapers here, we're just going to sand that till it's nice and smooth. So you'll see there that it is filling in some of those larger imperfections. Now, to get a more smoother finish on this, we can also continue doing some wet sanding. With all our sanding and filling done, we're ready for some primer. This is to get your piece ready for paint, but it also, if you can see layer lines in this step, you're going to see it in your paint. So make sure you check it out. If you need to continue sanding, just keep going through that process until you're happy with it. Now it's finally on to painting. Now this is the first time using this Montana Gold paint. I actually really like it. It dries quick and cures really fast. Now firstly I go over with like a mist coat, and then the second coat is on nice straight overlapping lines to give it a bit more of a thick coat. Now it's time to seal that paint with a clear coat. It's always a good idea to test your clear. I often stuff this up, so test it on some spoons. You can see here clearly one did not like it. Like the paint, we do a mist coat first, and then we come back over it with a heavier coat. Don't go too heavy as you don't want to have drip marks.
So how cool did these turn out? I was so impressed with the detail in the model, and it was such an easy build. So now that your crescent darts are done, make sure you click on this video to continue on with your Moon Knight cosplay build.